Swami Maharaj Ni Jai. Jai Swaminarayan parents, students and panelists, and welcome to this very last session of our Winter 2024 Shibir, which is Power of Dharma, of course. Let me begin with asking a question to the kids or the students here. How many of you are in 8th grade? Some of you are in 8th, some of you, how many in 9th? Then 10th? Maybe parents can raise their hand if their kid's not here. 10th and 11th. Barabar ne? Okay. So for the parents and the students of the kids who are in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, college admission is usually a very stressful kind of situation, right? We have to start preparing for the college or the major they want, starting at 6th or 7th, maybe at the most, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th for sure. Whether we can get into the college that we want, whether we will get into the major. So everything is very, very kind of, stressful, especially if you are involved as much as they are in their admission process, then you will know. So how do we make it a little bit less stressful? What are the things to be aware of? What do we need to do? How do we prepare, etc.? And that's what we are going to do in this particular session. So this is the information session for college prep, right? And what better kind of a group of people to talk to about this kind of things than our Bal Sanskar, how should I say that, teachers, ex-alumni, etc., right? Every one of them have grown up with Gurukul and Bal Sanskar, and they are in Harvard, they are in UPenn, they are in UT Southwestern, UT Austin, etc., etc., etc. Right? So we have a great panel. We are missing one, but that's fine. We have a great panel. I'll quickly introduce them, starting with Rishi Virani on your left. Of course, you all know him. He just got into Harvard School of Medicine, MD program. Then we have Shreya Shakaria. He's doing medical management. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shreyas Bhagat. Okay. Then we have Jignesh Mangrolia, who did his computer engineering from UTD, currently working with Boeing. Then, of course, we have Chintan Vora, who did his BSEE from UTD as well. And he's currently working for Texas Instruments as a product engineer. And on the girls' side, we have Ami Patel. She's doing her PA program in UT Southwestern, currently going through the rotations. Rutvi Kundalia, who is in UT Austin, she is doing her pre-med, so to speak, as well, and aspiring to become the doctor. And we have Radhika, who is in UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, in finance, BS Finance program. So great panelist. What we are going to do is, format-wise, we are going to quickly, 10-15 minutes, spend some time learning about their experiences, hearing from them, and then we'll open it up for the questions. After questions and answers, Rakhisu. So please, parents and the kids as well. I mean, I'm sure you guys must have lots and lots of questions that you want to ask. So please have questions in mind. I will perhaps start with Rishi. Well, we'll go through all the panelists, but Rishi, so you got into Harvard Medical School, the best in not only the nation, but also perhaps in the world, right? So what made your profile very unique? Share your experience for a couple of minutes.
So, just on everyone, my name is Rishi, as Uncle mentioned. I think it might be a little bit tough for like high school students because most of my experiences, as you guys know, for medical school, you first do your undergrad, and then from undergrad you go to medical school. So I did my undergrad at UT Austin in biomedical engineering, and so I can talk a lot more about what I did in undergrad that I think maybe was particularly attractive for like the admissions committee members. So I think, well, first and foremost, the most important advice I could give in that regard, or even in high school, which is important, is to find your niche. So there should be something unique about you that isn't necessarily super common about everybody else. So, for example, you could do volunteering in high school? Well, volunteering is something that's nice to do, and it's obviously required. It's important for everybody to do, but volunteering is also something that everybody does. It's not necessarily something that gives you a unique niche. So the first and foremost, like the most important thing I think anyone can do is find or carve out a unique space for themselves. So that's kind of what I started out doing at UT Austin. I knew that I wanted to go to medical school, so, like from day one at UT. So I decided, well, I need to find out a way to make myself as unique as possible to these admissions committee members. And so most pre-med students are going to do research. That's something that's very common. Most pre-med students are going to do shadowing. Most are going to do volunteering. These are all like basic, you know, you have to check the boxes off. You have to get good grades, obviously. You have to prepare well for the MCAT. So that's very important as well. But you also want to find out something that's unique about you. Like you want to make something that's unique about yourself. And for me, that was, I think, twofold. Number one was Gurukul, for sure. All of my essays were about Gurukul and my experiences growing up in Gurukul. So the fact that you are all here is already giving every one of you a unique niche about yourself. I don't think there are many people who have the experiences that you will attain at Gurukul. So first and foremost, that's really important, for me at least. And the second thing for me was, as a biomedical engineer, I was really interested in entrepreneurship. So I decided to carve out a space for myself in entrepreneurship. So throughout my undergrad career, my friends and I tried several times our hand at, you know, developing new technologies and like launching a startup. And we got pretty far a few times. We were able to develop like a new medication for this disease called wet AMD, or wet age macular degeneration, basically. So it's like blindness that's acquired after the age of 65. So we developed a new medication for this, and we're currently in the process of applying for a patent there. And then in my senior year, we worked with the Department of Defense to develop an autonomous intubation device. So if you know what like intubation is, if you're familiar with that, during surgery, what you have to do is you have to intubate patients, right? Because they can't breathe for themselves during surgery oftentimes. Or if somebody has faced like a really severe traumatic injury where they can't breathe for themselves, you have to intubate those patients. And this is a pretty common problem in the military, because in the military, if you get like trauma to your neck, you have to intubate those patients immediately. But if you're in the field, obviously you don't have surgeons or doctors to do that for you. You have basic trained EMTs or military field medics. So we tried developing a device that could autonomously intubate patients, and then we're currently working with the DoD to hopefully get them to contract that piece of technology. So I think those are the big things that all of my interviewers talked to me about. They were really, really interested in like my work in like, you know, developing these new technologies and trying to sell them to different entities in the United States. So that was something big. But I think even bigger than that was Gurukul. I talked a lot about like the lifestyle that our Santo have. In my essays, I talked about how I interacted with Santo, how for me, at least, Santo were in a way like my second parents. And so my admissions committee, like the people who interviewed me, the people who saw me in person, who met with me in person, and throughout the admissions process, talked to me a lot about that. And they were very curious about Gurukul. And I think that that was one thing that really helped set me apart, because Gurukul is just an experience that is very unique. So I think Gurukul, and then a niche that I created for myself in entrepreneurship and developing like medical technologies, was really cool. So for those who are in high school, like I think that a lot of what I talked about is like maybe the next step, right? Because you're in high school right now, and those things that I did were in college. But what I would advise everyone to do when selecting a major is to understand that the major you select also determines the types of opportunities you get, right? So of course you should try and select something you're interested in, but particularly for those who are interested in medicine, don't be under the impression that you just have to do like biology, or you have to do biochemistry as your pre-med major and then go into medical school. By no means is that the case. I did biomedical engineering. I have many friends in medical school now who did finance as their undergrad major. I have several friends who did their PhDs and now are in medical school. So there are many different paths to that. And the major that you select determines the types of opportunities that you get. So my friends who did, like, for example, biochemistry, they didn't necessarily have the same opportunities to like work with medical technologies that I did. My friends who did business, they had opportunities that I didn't have, maybe to work in policy or to work in government. Or, but along the same vein, those people didn't have the same opportunities I had to work in medical technologies. So I think those are the big things. Be careful when selecting your undergrad major, but make sure you do something that you're interested in, and success will definitely follow. And again, create a unique niche for yourself. I think that there's something unique about every one of us. You just have to find out what that unique thing is. For you, it may seem really mundane. So for me, for the longest time, I've been coming to Gurukul since 2006. So for me, Gurukul seemed like a pretty normal thing. But when I did some self-searching in the essay writing process, I realized that no, this is actually something that's quite unique. And not very many people have this kind of experience. And when I talked about that, that's how it was received. And all of my interviewers and all of the admissions committee members that I got a chance to speak with were really interested in that. And so I think that those are the big things for me.
Okay, thanks, Rishi, for very comprehensive explanation and information that you provided. Let's stay with one more person on the same field, and then we'll move on to the second field. But before we do that, I want a raise of hands from the kids here. Who wants to go into the medicine field, like nursing, medical, doctor? Okay, some of you. Who wants to get into engineering? Who is computer science, perhaps? Okay, finance? Okay, we have one. Anybody else? Can you speak up? Dave or whoever? Some of you may not know. Okay, that's fine too. So again, the reason why we have selected such a vast panel is that you get information from all different types of major. I'll go to Amir very quickly. If we can, and by the way, just like to request all the panelists to keep your response brief as possible, because we want to give everybody chance to ask the questions too. But information is great. So Ami, so I know you are doing the PA, you are into enroll in the PA program. So what's the difference in terms of the career between what you can do and how do you go about pursuing your career versus somebody who's done an MD kind of a thing? If you can talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so Jay Swaminarayan, everyone. My name is Ami. I actually did my undergrad from UT Dallas, where I majored in neuroscience. From a very young age, I was very interested in medicine, and I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know where exactly I wanted that to be in. And so when COVID hit, obviously, we all remember COVID, that kind of changed my trajectory a little bit. I knew I was interested in medicine, but I decided I wanted to pursue the PA path specifically for a few reasons. The first being lateral mobility. With the PA path, you're not locked into a specialty from the first day. So medicine is great, but with a doctor, you are oftentimes locked into a specific specialty like internal medicine or surgery. On the other hand, with PAs, you can start with internal medicine, work there, become an expert in it, and then after a few years, you can move into cardiology or gastroenterology. Without doing the necessary residency that a doctor may have to do. Of course, we love and appreciate our doctors, and when you actually work in the medical field, you'll see that medicine is very much like a team effort, and the doctor is just as important as the nurses and the PAs, and it's very much a collaborative effort. Where it kind of differs is that with PAs, they have their own patients, they see and treat, they take the physical, they take the history, physical exam, and everything. They prescribe medications. The only thing they really can't do is do surgeries by themselves. We can do first assist, but you don't want me doing surgery on you. Personally, I never was fully interested in surgery, so the PA path really just ended up being the perfect opportunity for me to practice medicine. And the main thing was, for me, is my goal was always to help Gurukul and serve Gurukul. And during COVID, I kind of saw myself pushing more towards school and not prioritizing Gurukul as much as I wanted to. So it kind of just helped me balance Gurukul and my career a little bit better. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you very much, Ami. Let's shift gears a little bit, and I'll go to Radhika very quickly. I know you obviously getting into University of Pennsylvania, you had good grades, SAT, great SAT scores, etc., right? So that's probably everybody knows about that. But tell us a little bit about what specific extracurricular activities, perhaps an essay, or something else that you did, which made your profile stick out.
So, Jay Swaminarayan, my name is Radhika, and just like how Rishibai first mentioned, it's very important to find your niche and where you want to, or where your interest is developed. So I kind of started off with loving math, and I wouldn't say early on, I found my passion in math. I just found myself doing it, and I started loving it more and more as I like progressed forward through school, especially when like we have reading and science and history homework, but I prefer to do math homework over that. So that's when I realized, okay, that like I love math. And then as I started high school, I was doing a lot of competitions and stuff, doing math competitions, and then I started venturing off into looking for internships and started doing summer programs. So through summer programs, I applied to summer programs at universities, and one summer program where I did was for entrepreneurship, where I worked through the financials and created a business model for how a startup should be running within a group of people. And I kind of took on the role of maintaining the financials. So, because that was where my passion landed. I loved doing math. And through doing that summer program, I realized, oh, I love entrepreneurship too. Like, I love the idea of forming my own startup, having my own idea, and kind of pushing forward with it. So, through doing that, I did another summer program, continued trying to push my passion forward with entrepreneurship, and in that summer program I learned more about leadership itself, because essentially in a startup it all comes down to maintaining a good leadership and having made sure that you have a well balanced team who also wants to work forward and has the same goal with you. So I continued to venture off more into entrepreneurship, got interested in finance, and then I took a class in school. A lot of us take basic classes, coding classes, biology, economics, and one thing that really stood out to me was that I loved economics. I was able to understand it really fluently, and that kind of shaped the trajectory of how I applied to schools and where I ended up going. So, to talk a little bit about essays and how I structured my essays, I talked more about my experiences that I faced within the summer programs and the internships that I did over my high school career. And that really shaped how my essays were structured. I focused more on my personal stories and shared that and why I wanted to go into the field that I'm going into based off of the experiences that I faced in that field. So to give a little give a little tip, write about your experiences, what you faced, and genuinely write about how you felt during that time and what you want to change or what you want to bring forward in that field itself. Because a lot of the times, what universities or colleges want is what change can you bring or how can you help them become better, right? And so, one important tip, especially in essay writing, I would suggest is write about your own personal experiences because that's where you can show the most.
Okay. So basically, again, similar story, right? Carving your niche. She did internship with a startup. She was interested in math already, and the essay. All these three combined things combined made her profile very unique. And I think one of the things which sticks out, and I think everybody, one of you, I think essay writing, it is very very important. Looks like to humanize or tell your story. Be very very authentic instead of coming up with some Badu high five, don't talk about that. Make them feel that you are telling your story or not somebody else's. I think that's the most important thing about the essay. Let's do this because we want parents and kids to ask questions also. I'll come to some of you other panelists all, but right now see if we have any questions from the parents. Um, yeah. Yes, Neeraj bhai. Yes.
Jai Swaminarayan. I don't have a question, but
Mhm.
when there is a time, I can share the research I have been doing for Shree.
Mhm.
I don't. It might take a little bit more time, so I'll.
Absolutely.
And in
We'd
the end,
love to create some platform,
yeah,
perhaps a Google's document, that we can share with all the parents. I think that's a very good idea. Yes, thank you very much, Jigar bhai.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much. We are getting learning, from all of you. Can we just a thought that all of you have gone through a lot of experiences. How can we get that knowledge, right? We cannot get in within an hour, but can we get some kind of Google Docs where everybody can put references, like some good
Yeah.
summer program you spoke about? Probably it would be a good resources for them to look into and
I-
research further. So that is one thing I had. Second thing, can kids use some of you as a mentor? Like if they have any questions, how can they reach out? Can they pick one-on-one as a mentor and then they continue to work for the rest of 3-4 years before they apply for college?
Absolutely. I think both of them are great ideas. We'll do that. Create a Google document and share it with everybody, as well as, I know they are very busy, extremely busy, but we will try our best for them to make them available for any questions or any guidance for sure. I'm sure they will love to be the mentors to some of the kids for sure. Okay, anything else? Any other thoughts or
Chintan Bhai is
questions?
taking notes of all the suggestions, so we can then pass on
Perfect.
to the panel, and then we can create some platform. Anyone wants to have questions, just raise your hand, please.
Just had one more question. Have you, during your essay writing process, have you worked with any college consultant or mentor or somebody who can help you throughout your journey?
Anybody has that experience?
I did for PA school. I did it through like a reputable source, and it did help. But that was because I was like the first person in my family to go into medicine, and I just wanted the extra set of eyes. But now, if I understand like those resources aren't available for everyone, we are here to help any of you guys look over your essays and stuff like that as well. It's not always necessary.
So one thing I will share there, right? I did a lot of research. I'm a data guy. The admission landscape changes drastically every year, right? Now DEI and whatnot and all 9 yards. So how do you decide what criteria gets you in a good Ivy League? I thought good grades. And then after doing research, I realized 60% of the students who gets into Ivy League, they don't have a GPA of 4.
I mean, Radhika and
Right.
all these
So-
kids can tell you very easily.
So grade is one thing. Essay is also equally. I thought essay is how you get in. Essay is also not that critical. It is important, but not critical. So that brings to how many, whatever that special courses, AP courses or whatever they call it, right? How many
It's
AP courses
combination.
you take. As a parent, I would have loaded Shree with all APs because I thought that's how she would get into Ivy League. But guess what? That's not important.
Yeah.
It is important, but not the most important. Rishi Bhagat mentioned one thing, which is you have to carve out your niche. What is that unique thing you will do? GPA in Frisco ISD, there are students whose GPA is 6, maybe ridiculous. Like somebody who studied in India, you cannot get 125 out of 100. That's how I visualize it. So important thing is, where do you draw the line? What is enough in GPA? What is enough in AP? So that you can take that time out and do something which is gonna set you apart.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we did was we are considering is dropping a couple of AP classes, but based on data. Example is
Yes.
AP history takes 440 hours a year. If you not do AP history, you can take that 440 hours out and do something else, and you already have 3-4 more other APs. Now you are way ahead from the other students.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Jigar, for the great insight.
It's a really good point.
Yes, please go ahead,
I
Rishi.
think there's a lot of noise online. There's definitely a lot of noise online as to like what's important, what's not important, and like the data that we see online in terms of like mean SAT, mean GPA, etc. These are all exactly that. These are mean values. It contains everybody from somebody who comes from a really low income minority background to somebody who comes from a really wealthy, Asian American background. So for someone who comes from a really wealthy Asian American background, you're going to have to do really well in school. You have to, like, the unfortunate reality is that you have to do more. And to a certain degree, I understand the argument there, like why I think, maybe lower income students or minority students are held to a different standard compared to, like, historically well-to-do students. I get it, totally. But again, like I said, that these are mean values. So when you see data like, oh, 60% of students don't have a 4.0 or something like that, I think that we should take that with a grain of salt. So like for people from our community, grades are really important. Grades, at least what I've found, is like the baseline. Like getting a good SAT score, having a good GPA, doing a ton of AP classes is what gets your foot in the door. And then extracurriculars, the unique things that you do outside of school, the niche that you're carving for yourself, that is what actually gets you in. So unfortunately, the reality is that we have to work really hard.
Yep.
And so I would advise not to drop the AP class. I think that, try to do as many AP classes as possible. Prioritize health. Well-being is incredibly important, far more important than any college admission. But with that being said, I would suggest try to maximize AP classes, try to maximize your GPA, SAT score, MCAT score, whatever it may be, and work a little bit harder on the outside to find that extra niche for yourself. And what I will say is that initially it does start off really hard. Like for me, it was really tough, and I'm sure that for you guys as well. Like when starting off, taking all these AP classes, it is not easy. But as you do it more and more and more, you get the hang of it, and you figure out ways to be more efficient. You figure out ways to save time in studying so that you can carve time to do other things outside. So I don't think that there's necessarily like one cutoff, like, okay, you should aim for this GPA, you should aim for this SAT score, or you should aim for this number of extracurriculars. What I think is most important is that you do as best as you can in grades, and then outside of the grades, like start creating that narrative and niche for yourself. Like, what is your story? And like at the end of the day, what the admissions officers are looking for is they're looking for students that can, improve the reputation of their school. So if they see a student that has done really cool things before, during the application process or before, and they think that, okay, this is a student, if they come to my school, I think that they could further my name. That is kind of the narrative or the story you want to be creating for yourself. It does take a lot of work, but I think that is the reality. And
Yep.
I don't know if anybody has
Absolutely.
different opinions.
So with that being said, I know the other panelists here, Rutvi and Shreyas Bhagat and Jignesh Bhai and Chintan Bhai, patiently waiting for their turn. So one question I have for four of you, I guess. When is it that you started actually working towards which grade? You towards getting into whatever you're doing right now, or perhaps you guys are doing, what kind of, if was there any special in terms of engineering, for example, if you guys can talk. I would let one by one, starting with Rutvi perhaps.
Just a minute, everyone. My name is Rithvi. I go to UT Austin, and I'm majoring in public health. I've always been interested in medicine. I know Jyoti Uncle said I'm pre-med, but I'm still debating between pre-med and pre-PA. I'm not completely set on one. But yeah, I've always been interested in medicine. So from the beginning of high school, I was looking into clubs that were medicine specific. And I would recommend doing that. Look into clubs you're interested in, starting your freshman year of high school, and then get more involved in them, and then choose a few that you would like to get leadership roles in. Because most people don't realize that early on, and then they look for leadership roles at the end, and then usually you can't get them if you're not involved in the clubs. So definitely start getting involved in clubs earlier. And just, you might not know what you want to do in high school early on, so explore your options as well. You don't have to be set on something at the beginning, but in high school, I feel like you still have some time to explore around and find what your passion is, because once you find your passion, then it gets a little bit easier. Then you can, once you find something you're actually interested in, then you'll excel in it. But
Yeah, thank you very much, Rutvi. So around ninth grade, right? That's when you actually started working towards it. Thank you. Let's go to the very far end here, the Chintan Bhai. Chintan Bhagat, can you share your, when was that, or what, because you're in engineering, double E specifically, now working in the field, was there anything specific that you did? Some people I've known, I'm in the double E field as well, they start working on specific projects, like they build stuff. Did you do any of that?
Jason and everybody. So my name is Chintan. So I currently work at Texas Instruments. So basically, as an engineer, my whole journey started same time around like high school. I took a class, like an engineering course, and within that course, we get to build robotic cars. We were making codes and doing all kinds of like cool stuff with robots and coding and all kinds of like engineering work. And that kind of was like my trigger point because it kind of like made me have more interest in engineering field. And I got to learn a lot more about coding. I got to learn more about like how mechanics work, how gear system works, and all that basically helped me get to the university that I wanted to go in, which was UT Dallas. And then I pursued both EE and CE, so it's both electrical engineering major as well as computer engineering major. And throughout this whole career path, if I hadn't taken that engineering course in high school, I might have not picked that major in college. So in high school, definitely, as Withri said, that make sure you kind of like dip your toes in like different fields, right? You're not limited to engineering, you're not limited to medical, but there are so many other courses out there like speech, debate, if you're good with like chess or any kind of other extracurricular activities. I would definitely recommend you guys trying out and just finding your niche because all these courses will help you become a better leader in the front. So basically, try out as many courses as you can, and it will eventually help you out. And it definitely did for me as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chintan Bhagat. So, Jignesh Bhai, I know you're working for Boeing, right? Tell us a little bit about your work.
Jason,
And what did you do? Computer engineering. Okay.
Jason, I'm Jignesh Mangrolia. I've been at Gurukul probably as long as these guys here. So I started at UTD, obviously, around the same time as Chintan, and graduated, got into Boeing. But the unique thing about me was that I didn't have a perfect GPA, right? And even with that, right, I had a lot of experience through projects and other things that I did on campus and on site that did help me land the offer. I was going against 3 people who had perfect GPAs, no experience whatsoever, right? And they took me over them. So it's not only in the college application process where they look at extracurriculars and other stuff that you're doing outside of grades. It's also when you go to work, right? They look at what are you doing? What job opportunities have you had? What projects have you done? What impact have you had on other people through those projects you've done, through that work you've done, right? That's the big thing that people look for no matter if you're going into college, right? They're looking to bring your reputation up. They're looking to bring yours and their reputation up, as well as when you join a company, right? Hospital, I guess the same thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, as for my experience for what I do as an engineer, I'm a majority a DevOps engineer. I do work with systems engineers, electrical engineers on a daily, but mainly software engineers. I'm mainly in charge right now, moving from one version control software to another. It's a very archaic version control software, but making sure all the code is not corrupted when we move it from what we're currently using to GitLab. So that, as well as making sure we can automate a lot of the processes that have been there since the 80s, which is still running COBOL. So it's a lot of learning new things, right? When I first started my career, I didn't know a lot of these languages, Fortran, COBOL, Ada. Those are really old, right? So majority of learning and having the ability to learn on the job really quickly and absorbing information is really important. This goes for any field. But that is mainly what I do as a DevOps engineer currently.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Very briefly, I know we are running really short of time, and I want to give more time to the questions as well. So, Shreyas Bhagat, within 1 minute, please, can you tell us what's the difference between what you're doing right now versus somebody like Shreyas Bhagat? Can you briefly just give us an overview of that?
Yeah, so just really quickly, hello, my name is Shreya Sakriya. So in college, I majored in both biology and accounting. And after switching from the medicine to the administrative side, I've also completed a master's in biomedical sciences as well. So, Jatinkul, to answer your question, what's so different from healthcare management or administration to actually becoming a physician? So, with being a physician, you are more so in charge of patient care, right? Treating patients, prescribing medication, and assessing diagnoses. Whereas on the administrative side, you are more so in charge of executive tasks and administrative tasks in a hospital. So ensuring that a hospital is running in the most efficient way possible, whether that may be from the financial aspect or even the patient care aspect, and also making those executive decisions, right? Many even healthcare insurance companies, whenever they merge, that is something that both investment banking and healthcare management will have to come together and do.
Okay.
So this is just an example of something of
Something
that
that you do. So you basically, you are the person responsible for deciding whether I get an MRI or not.
More or less.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have like 10 minutes at the most now, and what we'll do, if there is any more interest, we'll do a follow-ups as well. We'll create the document, mentorship program perhaps, and we'll do an online program if need to. We have 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes or so, we need to wrap it up. So if there are, I want to go to any kids first before the parents. Do you guys have any questions for them? Anybody? Come on. Aren't you? Yes, Rishi.
So you mentioned like you have to be unique, and you said you did some extracurriculars in like creating a business. But I just want to know like what other extracurriculars you did, because I've heard that like you have to do similar to whatever you want to do, like college in, like whatever degree you want to pursue. But like business doesn't really go hand in hand with medical.
And if I can interject, if we can keep the answers minimum to like 1 minute, and then we can do a follow-up discussion if need me more information, please.
I think a good question for Radhika to answer, because your question is about business specifically, right? Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, in terms of the other extracurriculars that I was involved in outside of like medical technologies and like trying to start these new ventures was research. So for medicine, research is really important, as I'm sure everybody here knows. Research is just a necessary part of the process. So in high school, what you can do to get involved in research, and I think it's really impressive if as a high schooler you can get into a research lab and start doing that. I think that many college admissions officers will look really, they'll be really impressed by that. So I would say just start cold emailing professors, like, email 50 to 100 professors at a time, because as a high schooler, like the chances of a PI saying, hey, you know what, yeah, join my lab are a little bit low, but if you shoot out enough emails, at least one is bound to say yes, because at the end of the day, you are free labor. They're not going to be paying you, but you get a lot out of it. You get to learn a lot. You get to develop your resume. So research is a really huge thing. Another thing is volunteering, shadowing, and clinical experiences to just kind of show your commitment to the field. So I know a lot of high schoolers do EMT programs, like EMT training, if you know what that is, like emergency medical technician. So if you do EMT training, that's, it's a time-consuming process, but it shows commitment. So I think that very quickly, those are some good extracurriculars you could look into.
Anybody else?
I will throw in UT Southwestern has a summer research program for high school students called the STARS program that I would suggest you guys look into if you guys are interested in that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys. So before we move on to the next question, I want to throw in one thing. I know each and every one of these boys and girls personally, and I also know that Niyam Padwama. Some of them are in Pennsylvania, Harvard. Most of you guys are away from home. But I don't think they compromise on their core values. So kudos to you guys for doing that. You try your best, I know that much at least, right? And so Niyam Padwana, for boys and girls, it is slightly challenging, but it is not impossible, right? Okay, next. Anybody else? Any questions from Beno side? Kaso koi ne question hoy to? Oh, Ridan has a question, okay.
So I just want to ask, like, when you say like get good grades, get a good GPA, so why any of you like ranked? Like obviously, like you should aim for ranked, but is it like mandatory, like you get ranked, or like you won't be able to get into like competitive school, or like?
No, yeah, don't stress too much about that. Rank is very important. So like you were saying, rank and GPA and these things are very important. But if you don't have like the top 1% rank, or you're not like the top 10 people, I don't think you should be worried about like, oh, all hope is lost, like it's over for me. It's not. It's definitely not. I think that's all the more motivation for you to do something outside of school and like find out your unique niche in something that isn't necessarily grades. I'll tell you right now, like even at Harvard, like a lot of my friends, they didn't necessarily have the best MCAT score, the best GPA or whatever, but they did all do something really really unique. Like in our entire class, there's like if you ask, there's like one person specific for one thing. Like there is a person who like you would, if you were to ask me, hey, do you know anybody involved in like venture capital? I could tell you, oh, this is the VC guy. Or if you were to ask me, hey, do you know somebody who is really involved in caring for people experiencing homelessness? I could point you to one specific person and say, hey, this is the person you want to talk to. They know everything. So, totally okay in terms of rank and whatnot. Don't stress about that. But I would encourage you to carve your niche outside of that, because that's just one part of the process. So don't be discouraged.
Okay. Thank you, Rishi Bhagat. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Few ISDs offer IB program, right? And IB versus AP is always a topic of discussion. Has any of you been to IB program, and if can you share your experience?
IB, right?
IB.
Did you say international business? Any of you?
So
bachelor, right? International bachelor. Sorry.
So Rishi and I actually both were in IB at Plano East. We did it from 9th to 10th grade. So one thing that we saw specifically for Plano East and schools within the United States is that although IB is more difficult and their courses are obviously seen as higher than AP, that isn't the case for most universities, at least not in the United States. IB does, however, hold its merit when you're applying abroad, for example. But for me and for Rishi, we did IB in 9th and 10th just to go to Plano East to kind of skip that Macmillan and Williams stage, put it one way or another. But after that, when we talked to a lot of people who have graduated from our high school and are now in college or even in a workplace environment who have already done IB, this is what they have told us many times. So we actually ended up switching into the, I guess, AP realm back in 11th and 12th grade, and what we were able to do is, instead of taking those incredibly difficult IB classes, we were taking AP courses that, although are difficult, are still ranked and weighted the same. So we were actually able to get a higher GPA and a higher rank and get into better schools, while at the same time getting the same result, if not better, as those who were in IB. So I guess to sum it up, I would say, yes, although IB is very prestigious, it's not the most important thing, at least not for schools in the United States, if that is your focus.
Okay, thank you, Suresh Bhagat. Now, we are running out of time, so I'll keep one last question, and I would like to give chance to the girls here to ask questions, maybe for one of your friends here. Any questions? Come on, I'm sure you guys are preparing for college, right? So, no more questions? Okay, well, we can do a mentorship. Okay, we can squeeze in one very brief question if you have a question.
I have a request. Can everybody mention which university they targeted and why? Right?
So,
like why UTD, why UT, why whatever it is.
okay, well, that's a good question. Maybe we can start with here. Ami, which university did you target and why? Quickly.
I will say undergrad, I was targeting UT Dallas. I went on there on a scholarship, so I just thought it would be the smartest decision because I was trying to go to like grad school after. For grad school, my goal was UT Southwestern, and luckily Maharaj blessed me. I did get into my dream school.
I go to UT Austin. I targeted it because of their research program. They have freshman research initiative, which I'm currently in, and I was really interested in research, so that was one of my target schools. Also, I wanted to be a little bit away from home for that independence.
I targeted UPenn, Wharton, and I go to University of Pennsylvania, Wharton. The reason, well, I just targeted it because it was a reach school, and I just left it all up to Maharaj. Whatever happened with my decision happened, and luckily I got it.
Perfect.
For undergrad, I targeted UT Austin because they have a really, really strong engineering program, lots of really great faculty that I had the great privilege to work with and have the mentorship from. And then for medical school, I targeted Harvard, and thanks to Maharaj really just leaving it up into his hands, I was fortunate enough to get there. And Harvard was really for the same reason. There's some really, really amazing faculty there that it really opened up a lot of doors for me. So yeah, those are my targets.
Thank you.
So for me, I targeted Austin College, so it's a private university up in Sherman. They have an accelerated program in both biology and accounting, which is the two fields that I majored in, so that was a target school for me. It also gave me better access to healthcare management just because you're learning both the clinical aspect and the business aspect of the same healthcare field. And currently I'm also targeting Rice's MBA program and Northwestern's Kellogg School of Business, just because they have, although they are recognized MBA programs, they also have a good program in an accelerated healthcare management position and scope as well. So those are the schools that I'm targeting.
Okay.
I targeted University of Texas at Dallas, UTD, mainly because it's easy to commute here as well, but as well as I didn't have to move and have all those expenses because I have two younger brothers after me who are going to college, so I had to take that into consideration. But they also have a pretty strong engineering building and faculty. So that was a big draw. I'm currently targeting UT Austin for my engineering management master's. So yeah, that's next up.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Jay Swaminarayan, I targeted UT Dallas as well. So I did engineering, especially EE. TI founded UT Dallas back in 1950. So there are a lot of courses that are very particular and use a lot of TI products. So I would say that it definitely helped me get into TI, and there are a lot of facilities and faculty that are really well known TI ex-employer, and there are a lot of great benefits of UTD and within their engineering program particularly. So that's why I target UTD.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. That brings us to the end of this session. Unfortunately, we do not. I mean, as always, things goes right. We always run short in this kind of thing. So, but we will definitely try and continue this somehow in different platform, online, etc., mentorship program, and so on. If there is more interest, I would like to thank every one of you, all the parents and students, for active participation, and a big thank you to the panelists for such a wonderful conversation. Thank you, guys. And one last thing, this is the Shibir is about power of Dharma. I mentioned this briefly. I would encourage all of you to talk to this panelist today, if possible, or through phones, whatever, right? Niyam dharan kevi rite pada છે. બધા, every one of them are very, very strong in that. I would strongly urge you guys to do that, because that's a big aspect of living a life away from home as well, right? For all of us. Okay, with that, thank you. Jai Swaminarayan.
Jay Swaminarayan, I will share all of their contacts in a document, and if you haven't RSVP, those who has already RSVP for this session, I have your contact, so I can share that. If you haven't, please go ahead and do that so that I have your contact, and then that way I can share.